the message. Thank you so much, Blaine. And to Priscilla in Houston, there have been a lot of legal back and forths in Texas this week around ballot drop-off locations, drive-through centers. The governor has been doing things that critics say he's going to try to suppress the vote. What's happening now?
Yeah. Well, Andrea, a number of last-minute legal challenges that are beginning to wrap up this week. Yesterday, a judge ruling or dismissing a case brought by the Texas GOP party seeking to limit drive-through voting here in Harris County. But meanwhile, earlier this week, a federal appeals court did uphold Governor Abbott's proclamation limiting each county to only one absentee ballot drop-off location. And I spoke with some voters here today, elderly voters who would have been eligible to vote absentee, but decided to come in person. One 75-year-old man telling me that there's simply nothing like being inside that voting booth and casting that ballot. And I did ask him who he was going to vote for. He told me that it was a very tough decision, but take a listen to what he said.
I find neither of the candidates personally attractive. However, the actual results of Trump's policies have been good. They've been good for minorities. They've been good for the economy. So I'll be voting for Trump while holding my nose.
And Andrea, I have been struck by how many older voters have been in line here to cast a ballot, even though they are eligible to vote absentee. And election officials tell me that hundreds of voters have actually been surrendering those absentee ballots at in-person locations, opting to vote in their local communities rather than drive to that lone ballot drop-off location. Andrea?
Well, given the distances, it's not surprising, indeed. Thanks so much, Priscilla. Victoria, what is your reaction to the early voting turnout so far in Texas?
Well, it's not really all that surprising, Andrea, if you follow the trends, right? So what we've seen is over the last 4 years, since 2016, and especially since 2018, a growth spurt in terms of voter registration. So from 2016 to today, we've seen a growth of about 2 million votes, registrants here in Texas. And in the last 2 weeks of voter registration, we saw over 300,000 new voter registrations. So we know that here in Texas, the electorate is growing, and that is a lot of the reason why we're seeing this increased presence at the polls. The other piece is that folks are pushing up against the obstacles that the state GOP party has been trying to put in place, right? So I think it is also a reaction in terms of many voters, especially the Democratic-leaning ones, saying, you know what, I am going to exercise my vote come hell or high water. I'm going to vote early. I'm going to make sure that I'm not going to be held from voting. So I think it's a little bit of that enthusiasm from the new Democratic electorate here in Texas and just the sheer growth of registrants in the past couple of years.
And do you think that there's really a chance that the Democrats could take Texas? It hasn't happened in a long time.
Right, and Andrea, and I've always been very cautious. As someone who lives in Texas, even though I live in the blueberry, which is Austin, and the tomato soup, but I think what I have seen in the last couple of days of early voting and these registration numbers make me feel purplish right now. So I'm not going to go to the blue side and say, oh, Texas is blue, but there's some very deep shades of purple that have been taking over the state in the last couple of cycles, and I think especially in the last couple of weeks here in Texas.
Okay, thanks so much, Victoria, and thanks to Blaine and to Priscilla as well. And